Okay, hello everybody. I'm Shannon Hatton-Corcoran. I'm an educational psychologist in Trafford, and I'm joined here with Ellen.
Hi, I'm Ellen Quinn. I'm also a Trafford Educational Psychologist.
And today we're just going to chat to you a little bit about our emotionally based school non-attendance supporting materials. We're aware this is a big problem in Trafford. Lots of young people experience difficulties attending school and are experiencing that emotional response and struggling to go in. And so over the past few years, we've developed a number of different resources and tools to help professionals and families supporting young people in this area. And so what Ellen and I wanted to do in this short webinar is just to talk you through and introduce you to some of those materials. So in a moment, I'm going to share my screen and just demonstrate where to find these materials and how to work your way through them if you're somebody supporting a young person who is struggling to attend school. So if I just share my screen. Okay, so you should now be able to see the Trafford Directory homepage. So to get to this, all you need to do is type in Trafford Directory into your search engine and it should be the first link that pops up, and then you'll get to this landing page like this. So what I'm going to type into the search bar is EBSNA. So that's our acronym for Emotionally Based School Non-Attendance. And so through searching that, it pulls up that first link here. It pulls up our page where all of this information and resources are shared. So if I click through onto there, the first section of this web page is just an introduction to what is EBSNA, how might we know if a young person is experiencing this, and what might it look like. So if I scroll down, we then move on a little bit into how can we support children and young people who are struggling to attend school. And one of the key principles that we work with in Trafford is that early identification is really, really key. The sooner we get in and support a young person, the more likely we are to be successful and the more effective we are at keeping them regularly attending school or returning back into attending school. So within Trafford, the approach that we really advocate for is a graduated approach where we slowly increase support as needed through cycles of assess, plan, do and review. So if anybody here is familiar with SEND or works in a SEND role, it's really similar to that process that we use within the Code of Practice, but this time applying it to attendance difficulties. So step one is that early identification of indicators of attendance difficulties. This might be through your attendance data, recognising that they're at risk of becoming persistently absent, so below that 90%. But we also know that lots of young people show signs of attendance difficulties before their attendance data actually drops. So this might be that they are distressed on arrival to school, they struggle with the transition, or it might be that their parent or carer is reporting to you that they're showing some of that distress at home, either after school or before coming in the morning. So as soon as we're aware that a child is at risk of difficulties attending or is experiencing this, it's really important that we start this process and put some support in place. So the first step for that is to then have a collaborative meeting between home and school. Often we find that different adults who know the child well have different pieces of the jigsaw, and it's really important that we bring this all together so that the support plan can meet those child's needs. We know that difficulties attending are often a symptom of something else happening in the child's life, and this can be a broad range of different things. So it's really important that we really explore what are the pupils' views, and I'm going to show you a card sort tool to do that shortly. And also we've got our early identification of needs tool, which Ellen's going to talk through later. And that really helps the adults, so the family and the school staff, to unpick some of those reasons and make sure that our support plan is really individualised to what the child needs. So step 3 is to then develop that action plan. Part of this is for our accountability and for our record keeping, so we know what strategies we've tried with the child, what has worked, anything that hasn't worked, and we know that we're moving forwards and we've got that record of support. It also means that we know what we've tried and we know who's going to implement those strategies, so it's really clear who's going to do what. We're also going to shortly show you an action plan template that we've developed where you can record some of this, but I know that schools also often have their own way of recording this too, so whatever works best for you and the family. It's then key that we review and update these action plans and support plans really regularly. If the child is having significant difficulty attending, we would advise this is at least every 3 to 4 weeks at first. And this is because if the strategies we tried are not working, we don't want to keep trying them over a long time if it's not helping. If strategies are working, then that's brilliant to be able to celebrate that and do more of what's working for the young person. It's also important then that if strategies aren't working or we're exhausted our in-house support within school, that we're then in a timely way referring on to more specialist services if we need their extra support. So to help you with this process, we've developed a number of documents which we're going to have a look at now. So we've got our EBSA guidance document, which we're going to have a look at, and our early identification of need tool. And we've also got some information about what works, and this is based on different children and families that we've worked with in Trafford and themes that we see in terms of what does consistently work. So all of this information can be downloaded either at the bottom here through individual links, but we've also got lots of other information now on our EBSNA Padlet, which I'm going to open and show you. So if you click on that Padlet link, it should just load up. And the reason we've moved some of this onto a Padlet is because it's just much easier for us to add more information, any events that are on, so we can keep the Padlet really up to date with anything that's useful for school staff or for families when supporting these young people. So the first section is our general resources, which we're going to have a look at in a moment. And we can see on there, there's also information about the different Padlets that are available too. So do take some time to explore any of those which might feel relevant for the young person that you're supporting. We then have a section for parents and carers, and on here we've got some information about our parent and carer drop-in sessions, which are running this year for anybody who wants to come and chat to other parents and carers in a similar situation. We've also got information about Thrive's webinar series and some information and guidance for parents and carers, as well as signposting to other Trafford services. We then have a similar section for school staff, again with reference to the school staff training. There are still 2 more cohorts running for this in the spring term, so if you've not yet been on our free training, please do book on. It's completely free and it will give you a much more in-depth understanding of EBSNA and how you can support young people experiencing this, as well as a few other helpful articles and pieces of information to help your school support. The next section is then around gathering pupil views. As mentioned, this is a really important part of your support because we need to understand from the young person's perspective why it is that they're struggling. So alongside the early identification of need tool, we've got a card sort tool which you can use to help them, and also some other information here about different activities that you can do with the young person to understand what's making it hard for them. The last 2 sections is then a bit more information about other Trafford services that might be able to help you, and also some national services which might be able to offer some more information. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to scroll back up to the top and we're going to have a look through some of these resources that we've developed in Trafford. So I'm now going to open the early identification of need tool just by clicking on it, and then Ellen's going to talk us through that.
Thank you, Shannon. It's really great to have everything all together on the Padlet. So as Shannon mentioned, this is the early identification of needs tool, and it kind of does what it says on the tin. It's really important to identify these needs as early as possible. And as Shannon mentioned, getting everyone together is a really important part of this being successful. It's a collaborative tool, and it's really important that the school and parent do it together and that the child can contribute to it too, via the card sort or via a discussion altogether. I think that the tool can be used flexibly. It's a discussion-based tool rather than kind of a questionnaire, and it's also broken down into different factors that have been created by a multi-agency team in Trafford, so everyone kind of coming together to think about the different factors that contribute to this presentation. It's really important to remember that it doesn't just identify risk factors, it also identifies protective and resiliency factors. And I think all of this information can be really helpful in creating a really personalised action plan for children and families. So if we scroll down, you'll be able to see those different factors. And there are sections for you to add notes. And as I said, as a flexible tool, you can return to this over time through the review processes that you do have. And also potentially when involving other specialist services or on transition to high school, it can be a really useful information tool to share with others. At the bottom is a section for you to think about your next steps. And this is where the action plan can come in useful. So again, as Shannon mentioned, schools may have their own plans, but we thought it'd be useful to provide an example.
Hopefully it'll come up in a second. I'll just try again.
And I guess this is a place for you to transfer all of the information that you have learned from the parent, the staff and the young person into a really clear action plan that the pastoral team, the SEN team or the teacher can follow. Again, it's really important that this is reviewed regularly. We know that with EBSNA cases, it's really important to celebrate small steps of progress, those small steps of success, and to figure out what's working well and what isn't, because it's ever changing. So those reviews are really important, and as I said, can be completed again. The ideas bank within the guidance document can be really helpful in creating your action plan, which is number 3 and 4 of this document. But again, schools will have their own strategies and you will know what works in your setting and what interventions you have access to. So do just use it as a guide.
Fantastic, thank you, Ellen. And so the last thing that we're just going to have a look at in this short webinar today is that ideas bank within the guidance document. So if I just click on that here, and so within our, if I just go back to the top first, within our guidance document, there is lots and lots of information in here. So please do read through that in your own time and find those sections as and when they're relevant. And you can see this has been developed with lots and lots of Trafford agencies, the same as the early identification of need tool. So we've really tried to draw together a lot of that expertise that we have in Trafford in giving you this advice. So if we look through the contents page here, you can see there's a huge range of information in this document. The bit that we're interested in right now is our ideas bank. So if I just click on that here, you can see it really nicely lines up then with those sections in the early identification of need tool. So hopefully it'll be quite easy to find those that you've ticked as high or medium influence over the child. We can then find some relevant strategy ideas here. As Ellen said, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just to give you some ideas to then think about what might work in your setting and what might work with that individual child. Another area of this just to highlight, if I go back up to the contents page, is that I know we've had feedback previously from some settings around finding it helpful to have case studies, and there is a primary and a secondary school case study contained within this as well, if that's something that you would find useful to look at. So that is a summary, I'll just stop sharing the screen, of all of the different information that we've produced and lots of the different resources that we've got. As you can see, there are lots of other things signposted and included on that Padlet and on the Trafford Directory page. So please do take the time to explore some of that and think about what might be useful for the child and young person that you're working with. If you have any questions or want any more support with helping a young person with attendance in your setting, there's lots of information about the different Trafford services that can help you. And if in doubt, please do speak to your school EP, speak to your school SENCO, who will have their details and be able to put you in touch. And we're always happy to help and answer any questions about attendance difficulties in the schools that we work in. Thank you so much for watching this webinar. We hope you found it useful and we hope that it makes a difference in your support for young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.